morning my brother put our grandfather's building up for auction, he did not call me. I found out the way the whole town found out, from a sign in the window, white letters on a red board, leaning against the inside of glass that my family had kept clean for 60 years. I stood on the sidewalk in the cold and read it twice. My name is Sam. The man selling the building was my younger brother Ray. And this is the story of how I let him lock the doors, sign the papers, and stand on a stage with a gavel in the air before he found out he had been selling a building that stopped being his the hour he turned the key. You have to understand what the building was. Halcombe Market. 2 floors of iron and brick on the best corner in town, built in 1912, and for as long as anyone alive could remember, it was where the town actually happened. Bread and flowers and fish on ice on the ground floor. A hall upstairs where people got married and buried and argued about the school budget. My grandfather Gideon ran it for 40 years, and he did not think of it as a business he owned. He thought of it as a door he was responsible for keeping open. There is a difference between those two things, and that difference is the whole story. He used to keep me after closing to sweep the aisles, and he talked while I worked. "We do not own this place, Sam," he told me more than once. "A family like ours does not get to own a thing like this. We were only ever keeping the doors open. The day we forget that is the day we lose it." I was 9. I thought it was the kind of thing old men say to make sweeping feel important. I had no idea he meant it as a legal fact and that he had gone to a lawyer in 1961 to make it one. Because in 1961, when Gideon finally moved the building out of his own name and into a family company so it could pass down cleanly, he did something the rest of the family never understood and mostly never knew. He did not simply hand the company the building. He wrote a condition into the deed. The company would hold Halcombe Market for one purpose and one purpose only: to keep it open to the public as a market. And the deed said, in plain hard language a first-year law student would recognize, that the day the doors closed to the public for good, the building would leave the company entirely and return automatically to the one living descendant of Gideon's own bloodline. Not sold. Not fought over. Returned. The lawyers have a cold little phrase for it: a possibility of reverter. Gideon had a warmer one. He called it the building's way of coming home. My brother Ray was the one people liked. I ran the market. I unlocked it at 5 in the morning, and I knew every vendor's kids by name, and I fixed the boiler myself when it quit, which was often. Ray sat on the board of the family company, wore good suits, and had opinions about the future. When our parents passed, the company shares split down the middle, half to me, half to Ray, and control of the board went to whoever could count. Ray was better at counting people than I ever was. He got himself named managing director of the company by a vote I did not see coming, at a meeting I was told had been moved, and just like that, the man who swept the floors answered to the man who shook the hands. The town was changing. A highway interchange opened 2 miles out, money started moving in, and a firm called Kessler began buying up the old bones of Main Street to turn into something with a rooftop bar and a valet stand. They looked at Halcombe Market, 2 floors of iron and brick on the best corner in town, and they saw a hotel. Ray looked at the same building and saw the thing he had wanted his whole life, which was to be the man who finally made the family rich instead of merely respected. All he had to do was deliver Kessler a clean, empty building. One owner. One signature. No complications. So Ray started building the case that the market had to die. He was not crude about it. He was a man who counted, remember? He raised the vendors' rents just enough. He let the ground floor stalls go empty and did not fill them. He stopped repairing what broke. He wrote board memos about a heritage asset underperforming its potential, which is the sort of sentence that has ended more good things than any villain ever has. And every quarter he stood up and showed the numbers he had arranged, and he asked the question he had been aiming at all along. Why are we keeping a failing market open when the building is worth a fortune empty? He brought it to a vote on a gray Thursday. Close Halcombe Market, permanently, and sell the vacant building to Kessler for a number with a comma in it. None of us had ever seen attached to our family. Ray had the votes lined up before he walked in. He always did. He looked at me across that table, almost gently, the way you look at someone you are about to beat, and he asked if I had anything to say. And here is the part most people cannot understand, and the part I need you to sit with, because it is the whole hinge of this. I knew about the clause. I had known since I was 9 years old, and a man with a broom in his hand told me the doors were the only thing that mattered. I knew that the instant Ray closed those doors for good, the building would leave the company and land in my name, and there was nothing he or Kessler or any lawyer in the state could do to stop it. So I looked at my brother, and I said I had nothing to add. And I let him win. The vote passed. Ray shook the hands he was good at shaking. Somebody actually clapped. My sister-in-law hugged him. And I drove home that night past the dark front of Halcombe Market, and I did not feel triumphant. I want to be honest about that. I felt sick. Because to spring the only trap I had, I was going to have to let my grandfather's doors close. I was going to have to watch the one thing he told me to protect go dark and trust that a piece of paper he signed in 1961 loved that building as much as he did. I watched the last of the lights go out from across the street, one window at a time, until the whole building was dark. And I did the hardest thing I have ever done. I let them. They gave the market a farewell day. It was awful and it was beautiful. The vendors who were left brought what they had. People came to say goodbye to a room their grandparents had married in, and Ray gave a speech about honoring the past by embracing the future, which is what men say when they are selling the past to fund the future. I stood at the back by the boiler I had fixed 100 times, and I said goodbye to it too. And at 6 o'clock, in front of everyone, my brother walked to the front doors of Halcombe Market, and he pulled them shut, and he turned the key, and he held it up for a photograph. He thought he was closing a chapter. What he had actually just done, in front of 40 witnesses and a photographer, was pull the trigger on his own deal. Because the deed did not care about the speech. It did not care about the vote, or the comma in the number, or how many hands Ray had shaken. The deed had one condition, and Ray had just satisfied it in the most public way imaginable. The doors were closed to the public, for good. And in that exact moment, quietly, with no announcement and no ceremony, the ownership of Halcombe Market stopped being the family company's and became mine. Ray had spent a year and every favor he had arranging to sell a building. He had succeeded at everything except the one thing that mattered. He no longer owned it. He did not know yet. That was the strange patient week. Ray was busy being congratulated. The papers with Kessler were drawn up. And I did nothing. I did not send a letter. I did not gloat. I have learned that the loudest thing you can ever do is stay completely quiet while a confident man walks toward a wall he cannot see. I let him get all the way to the closing table. Because I wanted the wall to be Kessler's own lawyers, not me. A truth you deliver yourself can be argued with. A truth a man's own attorney delivers is the end of the conversation. The closing was on a Friday, in a glass conference room downtown, the kind with a view meant to make you feel like the deal is already done. Ray was there in his best suit with a pen he had probably bought for the occasion. Kessler's people were there. And Kessler's title company was there, because before anyone hands over that kind of money, a title company opens every book and reads every deed back to the beginning, looking for exactly the sort of thing everyone else had forgotten to look for. So, a lawyer half Ray's age, who had never met my grandfather, opened the 1961 book. And she went very still. And she asked to speak to her partner in the hall. I was not in the room, but I have heard it described enough times to see it. How the meeting stopped. How Kessler's lead lawyer came back in and did not sit down. How he explained, in the careful flat voice they use for very expensive bad news, that the company sitting across the table did not own the asset it had come to sell. That a determinable fee written in 1961 had reverted the property to a single-name descendant the moment the market permanently closed, and that the seller's signature on these documents was worth exactly nothing, because you cannot sell what you do not own. And then he asked the only question left in the room. Who does this building belong to now? Somebody slid Ray the page. And my brother read my name in 90-year-old ink and our grandfather's chain of title and understood all at once that the doors he had locked so proudly had not ended anything. They had sent the whole building home to me. I got the call an hour later. Ray's voice did not sound like the man who counted people anymore. It sounded like a man standing in an empty room, listening to how loud a deal is when it collapses. He did not shout. He asked me, quietly, how long I had known. And I told him the truth. Since I was 9, and someone handed me a broom. Here is the part where you expect me to sell it. To take Kessler's fortune myself, or to lease them the building on my terms and collect a check forever, and I understand why, because that is how these stories usually end, and I would not have blamed a man for doing it. Kessler came to me directly within the week, all charm now that the charm was pointed my way, and they put a very large number on the table. And I did not slide it back the way you slide back an insult. I looked at it a long time. Then I told them no, and I told them why, and it was the only sentence in this whole story that would have made my grandfather proud. I was not going to sell the reason the building existed to fund a rooftop bar. So I reopened Halcombe Market. The doors that had been closed for 11 days opened again, and the same clause that had sent the building home to me quietly reset, because the building was open to the public as a market once more, exactly as Gideon wrote it. But I am not only a man with a broom, whatever Ray thought, and I had learned something from watching my brother count. Kessler still wanted the corner. So I made them a different deal, and it was all perfectly legal, which is the only kind of justice I have ever trusted. I leased them the upper floor, the old hall, the one people got married in, to build their hotel rooms and their rooftop bar, on a ground lease I renew, on my terms, for a share of what the place earns for as long as it stands. The market lives on the ground floor forever. The money lives on the roof, and every dollar of it now flows through the one door my grandfather told me to keep open. Ray lost his seat on the family company inside a month because a managing director who sells a building the family does not own and blows up a closing in front of Kessler is not a man people vote for anymore. Kessler cut him loose the same clean way he once cut me out of that boardroom. He calls sometimes. Sometimes I answer because he is my brother, and our grandfather would not have wanted a locked door between us either. We do not talk about the building. There is nothing to say that the deed did not already say better. They all thought they were fighting over what the building was worth. The comma in the number, the fortune sitting empty, and the whole time, the only thing that ever mattered was what it was for. You can sell a building. You cannot sell the reason it was built. So here is what I want to know from you. When my brother turned that key in front of 40 people and held it up for the camera, was he closing the smartest deal of his life, or opening the trap my grandfather set 60 years before either of us was born? Tell me in the comments. This has been the Vendetta Tapes.